I'm now speaking with Joe Renner, 6th District City Council candidate. Joe, we've heard so much about you. You have quite a name out here, but first I want to know, why are you running for 6th District City Council? What improvements do you want to make,
My main motivation for running for City Council is just the clear unresponsiveness of the current council. I've approached them many times over the last 5 years, and never have I ever received a clear response other than, we'll talk to this person, we'll talk to that person. None of them ever take personal responsibility. It's as if they forgot that they're legislators. And that was my main motivation right there. I'm president and secretary of a nonprofit organization called Fluoride Free Fort Wayne. And I first started approaching City Council about 5 years ago or so about removing the toxic substance, sodium fluoride, from our water system. They not only did they completely ignore my message, but I actually had to bring evidence to them that we were surpassing the secondary minimum for toxicity levels on the sodium fluoride, bring it to Deb McMahon, the Allen County Health Commissioner, and then they finally lowered it down. We're less than 0.02% away from where they'd have to send out a public notice, like in Toledo, where they could not drink the water.
So wait a minute, I've always heard that we had one of the best water supplies around here. Are you saying it's borderline toxic?
It is toxic. You add sodium fluoride to it. Indiana Supreme Court decided that fluoride is an essential element. Unfortunately, they don't define between calcium fluoride, which is naturally occurring, and the sodium fluoride, which is a blanket term for dozens of chemicals. Fort Wayne uses fluorosilicic acid, which isn't fluoride. It's just the blanket, falls into the blanket term of sodium fluoride. So the city purchases this at $150,000 plus every year and dumps it straight into our water supply for our consumption.
Now, okay, so what is the fluoride that's in toothpaste?
Fluoride in toothpaste is also sodium fluoride, but it says clearly on the label to spit it out. If swallowed, call Poison Control Center. The same thing is on your mouthwash. So use topically in small amounts. It's not bad, but you don't swallow it. But when they start adding it to the water, and everybody has to consume it at an unrated dose, everybody drinks different amounts of water every day, and everybody has a different body weight. Babies drinking it mixed with formula, and so on. So you can't control the dosage of what someone gets, and it affects every system in the body, and it doesn't just affect the teeth, even though they claim it's for oral health.
So now I think I remember reading someplace that some countries have banned this.
Many countries in Europe have banned it. I believe only Ireland, Australia, and England are still fluoridate their water. Most every other country has banned it.
But what does it do to you?
Well, it can cause bone fluorosis, which is often misdiagnosed as arthritis. It can cause thyroid damage. It can cause fluorosis of the teeth, which is darkening and pitting of the teeth. There's been recent studies by Harvard that show that it causes a deficit in IQ when children consume it, from 0 to 9 years old. It's also been linked to ADHD.
Well, Joe, as we're talking about fluoride in the water supply here, what about the impact of fluoride on I might not be saying this correctly, the pineal gland?
Yes. Pineal gland.
Yeah. What is a pineal gland? What does that do for your body, and how does fluoride affect it?
Well, the pineal gland, it secretes certain enzymes in your brain, is what it does. It's for brain function, basically. A lot of people think of it as the third eye that you hear about, like in Hindu culture. In Egypt, they represented it as a pine cone, but it actually represents your pineal gland. That's why you see the imagery of the pine cone so often in ancient history. They thought that was where their intuition comes from. But what it does is it secretes certain chemicals that aid the brain in functioning. What fluoride does, it seems to build up in the pineal gland, and it literally calcifies it.
But is there any time? How do you know that it inhibits the functioning of the human being?
Well, anytime you're not getting essential enzymes in your brain, hormones. Anytime any of these chemical imbalances in your brain are affected by something you're taking, it's going to affect your brain function. There's so many reasons why. Like so far, they've already correlated it with ADHD, which is attention deficit disorder, and that's one of the things that affects in your brain. So there's been 33 different Harvard studies that prove that consumption of fluoride affects your IQ.
So I guess what I'm getting at is, then the last question on that is again, why the reluctance to deal with the issue? If the scientific evidence is there, why haven't we been more forthright?
Well, the best I can figure is they don't want to assume any responsibility for fear of litigation. They've been doing it so long and saying it's safe, it's safe to consume, and when they find out that it's not, once they admit it, then they open themselves up to litigation, just like with asbestos, just like with lead and paint, lead and gasoline. Once we thought it was okay, we thought it was safe, but then we found out that it was toxic. And once that happened, then not only were they forced to take it out, they were forced to clean up everything because it is toxic. Many people got sued for asbestos inhalation, mesothelioma, I believe it's called, is the form of cancer you get from inhalation of that. There's still, even today, there's still lawsuits going on for that. I think that they're afraid to admit it, because once they admit that it is a toxic substance, even though there is scientific evidence right now that proves it is, it's been listed in the Lancet Journal of Medicine as a neurotoxin. So once they admit that it's toxic and end its use, how many lawsuits do you think are going to start rolling in from people who say that they were affected by this toxic substance? That's what they fear, I believe.
When you share this information with the regular people here in the community, how do they receive it? I mean,
the people my age, maybe a little older, from 50 on down, accept it as scientific truth. Most of them refuse to drink city tap water just because, for that reason. The only negative response I've gotten was from people that are older than 60. Most of them are still under the false impression that it's still safe and it's essential for your teeth. They don't understand that oral hygiene has increased in the last 50 years so much that this added chemical, not only is it harmful, but it's not giving any additional help. We get enough fluoride in our toothpaste when we use it 3 times a day. We get it in our mouthwash. We get it every time we go to the dentist. They do a fluoride rinse. So, if that's in the individual's choice, but what our city government's doing is they're taking that choice away from us. They're taking that choice to not consume fluoride. It's a medication. Basically, they say they're doing it for oral health, and that would make it a medication. They're medicating the population without their permission, and they're doing so without knowing the dosage of that medication.
So what can the person do to cleanse themselves of this if they can?
The number one thing you can do is stop consuming fluoridated water and products made with the fluoridated water, which is very difficult. You can use reverse osmosis to get rid of the fluoride in water. Reverse osmosis filtering, that's the only filtration system that can get rid of it once it's been added. You can buy unfluoridated bottled spring water. Of course, the bottle's not good for the environment, so your best bet is reverse osmosis, like Culligan, something to that effect. That also adds an added cost, to your daily life. Culligan isn't cheap. Neither is having to buy water when you're already getting it shipped in from the city. So those most adversely affected by water fluoridation are African Americans, the poor, because they can't afford to go out and get that extra, bottled water. They can't afford to go out and get the Culligan.
Part of your motivation is the people on council aren't listening to you or listening to that?
They don't listen to anyone. It's not just me. And I've sat and, like I said, I've been going to council for 5 years, and I've watched the citizens go up there and comment continuously. And they sit there doe-eyed. They know that they don't have to respond. At least that's what they think, and so they don't. They'll challenge you. They'll say we don't answer questions when they're directly asked a question, They've been asked for their email addresses so citizens could contact them. They refuse to give out their email addresses. One of the councilmen even went as far as after the council meeting, after I spoke, he came up to me and he said, you know, Joe, we know fluoride is toxic, but you know, you can just flush that stuff out of your system. What are you going to flush it out of your system with? Fluoridated water? It builds up accumulatively in the bones, so you can't flush it out. But you know, somebody's making money on this somewhere, so they continue to do it, and they've been doing it since the 50s. So they're really hard pressed for change.
Well, you know, now being a resident on the South Side, you know, what improvements would you make on the South Side? A lot of people are saying that nothing is here.
I can tell you right now, all these empty box stores, we motivate people to fill those box stores with the tax abatements instead of giving $33 million to Ash Brokerage downtown. Just the other day, I seen them give out $9 million for two jobs, and that's just the promise of 2 jobs. They gave a company $9 million. Look at Vera Bradley. I mean, in 2013, they were given a tax abatement. It was supposed to go over the course of 4 years. They were supposed to add, I believe, 200 jobs, and that was just 2 years ago, and already they're shuttering the doors. You know, so what's going on is they're giving tax abatements to people who aren't fulfilling their promises. They're letting infrastructure crumble on the South Side. What I've seen is a big red line going right along the tracks. That's where the money flow stops when it comes to infrastructure.
What tracks?
Yes, the tracks right there at South Anthony Boulevard. The track, you come over the tracks right there, right over the tracks there at Tecumseh Bridge. You know, the Tecumseh Bridge. Everything on the south end of downtown is completely ignored. You know, my children live here too. My children deserve the same quality streets, same quality businesses as the people living out north, the people living out west. So there's no reason why. I mean, Glenn Hines claims there was $100 million invested in Fort Wayne, $1 billion invested in Fort Wayne, and $100 million in the Southeast District. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't see that investment paying off. I see crumbling roads. I see big box stores. I see people, you know, moving out as quick as they can and leaving the houses empty and dilapidated. I see homeless, you know, just right out in the street begging for money because they have no opportunity for education. They have no opportunities for employment in the area. It really is ridiculous that, you know, he could say he gave $100 million. He didn't give it. He just helped approve the spending through council. But you know, where's that money going? Because it's obviously not going to the streets. It's not going to bridge repairs on the side of town. It's not going, you know, it's not going to facades on business fronts. So where's this money going? I'll tell you where it's going, into somebody's pocket. And you know, I'm a fiscal conservative, and I think there's a lot of money that can be saved while still improving this district's infrastructure.
You know, how do you feel when people tell you that they don't vote, or that their vote doesn't make a difference, so therefore they just skip it, but they still complain about it?
I think it's really sad because you know, our system is a great system, but the fact that we have career politicians who just stay in office and they don't have to worry about being voted out of office, like Councilman Hines said before. You know, nobody votes on the southeast side of town. You know, maybe now that there's a Republican running against a Democrat, and you know, maybe that'll bring out some more voters. Hopefully, it'll get people actually looking into what the candidates stand for. And you know, like Councilman Hines, for instance, he hasn't had competition, not since he was appointed 16 years ago. This is the first election year that he has actually had competition, both in the primary and in the general election, if he makes it that far.
Excuse me. You know, right now, a lot of people say that Fort Wayne does not have an identity, and that we need one. And what will your involvement? How will that help create an identity? What identity do you see that Fort Wayne has or should have?
I think Fort Wayne should hold the identity of a leader in the community. I mean, look at what Indianapolis is doing. Right now, they're the first in the nation to create a homeless bill of rights, and I think we could do the same thing here. Not only with the homeless bill of rights, but a housing first program for our homeless. You know, why shouldn't we be the leaders instead of following 5 years later? There's no reason why we shouldn't.
And you know, since this whole pool of candidates is so diverse, but so interesting to me, you know, when you bottle all their motivations and energies and reasons why to run, why do you feel, or do you feel that that's a good, that students can benefit by listening to the candidates and being involved in the forums that we have coming up? What I'm asking is, how do you see a young person benefit by listening to a story from a candidate?
I think students would benefit quite a bit by participating. You know, they need to express what's important to them. If they don't express what's important to them, they're just going to get the same old thing over and over again. And that's pretty much the definition of insanity: expecting a different result and doing the same thing over and over again.
And last thing here, what do you want to say to people who feel that you're a one-issue person? What do you want to say to them that they don't know about you?
Well, I'm a father, I'm a working man, I'm concerned about my neighborhood, my children live here. Like I said, water fluoridation, that is the reason I got involved to begin with, but it expands to so much more. It expands to how much taxes we're paying. It expands to, look, we can't even have our bus schedule the way it used to be because our schools aren't getting funded. Yet our city council could still afford to spend millions and millions of dollars on corporate welfare every year, continuously, and not a peep comes from the media, not a peep comes in objection from any other council member. Nothing comes from anybody, because why should they? They're the ones funding their campaigns. Me, I'm not accepting any campaign funds from large corporations, only individual campaign donations, because I don't want to be indebted to these large corporations that obviously have benefits through this corporate welfare.
You said something there. How has the media treated you? Have they given you a fair shake?
When I first ran for Allen County Council, I was given a fairly decent shake. This year, I really haven't heard anything from the media. I've sent out my press release and bio, but I think they're concentrating more on the primary candidates at this point. So, but like I said, this is my second time running for office, so I expect a little bit more attention this time around.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric.
And thank you for watching.